Carlos Chamber webinar series where we're discussing remote working solutions. I'm delighted to have the team here from BITS with us, and we're also joined by Tom O'Neill from Work Junction. So I'm going to hand you over now to Paul Byrne and David from BITS, and Tom as well. If you want to comment at any stage throughout the webinar, there's the chat function just on the bottom of your screen, or you can also post questions onto the Q&A and that as well. And we hope you enjoy the webinar. Thank you. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having us on. My name is Paul Byrne. I'm a director at Business IT Solutions in Kilkenny. I'm joined today by David Dooley, our Technical Service Manager. David, if you want to say a quick hello there.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, guys. As Paul said, Technical Service Manager of BITS. Been working here since about 2006. We're based in Kilkenny, but we cover basically the southeast of Ireland. You'll see further in a minute, Paul will show you a map of the areas we cover. I hope you find this useful.
Great, thank you, David. And also joined by Tom O'Neill from New Work. Tom, if you want to introduce yourself.
All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, we're in Kilkenny as a co-working centre, mainly focusing on remote working since 2015. A bit different than other co-working centres. We're in Carlow now as well for some time, and Wexford and in Rathmines in Dublin. And we've been sort of beating the drum of co-working since 2015, particularly for remoters. So COVID is both a crisis for us, and hopefully in the longer term, we'll be able to participate in the change that I think is going to happen. So thanks, Paul.
Great. That's an interesting term. Did I hear you just use the term remoters?
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's remoters. There's a big movement, growing movement in Ireland of people getting together who are remote working for different companies.
Yeah, very good.
GrowRemote.ie is one of the outfits people gather in.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So just a quick intro or a quick oversight of Business IT Solutions for those of you who don't know us. We work with in excess of 200 SMEs right across the Southeast, employing so anywhere between 2-3 users right up to 100 users. All of those devices or all of those users represent about all of those companies, should I say, represent about 2,500 users for us. So we're busy day to day supporting all of those users. The company was incorporated in 2016, and I'm delighted to say we've managed to find a way to retain our staff during the crisis. Those who are not busy are currently on training schedules. So bizarrely, we're kind of investing in the business. We're also moving. We hope to move to a larger office space in June. All things going well. Now, you may well know some of these clients listed on the left-hand side. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the business. Now, before we talk about remote working and COVID-19 and the impacts, etc., we felt it necessary just to remind ourselves that look how well the internet has performed here. Look how well the various cloud platforms have performed. So Azure, AWS, Google. Now, none of these providers could have ever guessed that their systems would have been tested with such short notice. And I accept that a lot of the internet traffic has moved from offices to people's homes. I accept that. But even that said, I think it's important just to, for us all to be cognizant of this. Now, what we want to do is, rather than sit here and talk about remote working environments, what we're going to do, we're going to show you some real live environments that are working as we speak. It's all in the context of COVID-19. And it's also worth noting that all of these clients that we're about to go through with you, all these systems, all of these companies had had already embarked, if you like, on their cloud journey prior to COVID-19. So just want to put that out there. So what I'll do now is I will pass back to David Dooley, who will take you through these 3 or 4 examples. And again, these are live working environments as we speak.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. I said just before I talk about this, just what you're saying there about the internet and cloud services. Obviously, what it's shown is that the necessary technology and the infrastructure is it's there in place. It's working for us. It's allowing us to work from home. It's just a matter of finding the right solution that fits your business. So in this example here, we have a client site who have they're actually in a similar space to what Tom will be referring to later on there, with a shared internet spaces. So I'll let him explain that better later on. But for the moment, what this client has is they have 3 or 4 machines in their office. On a day-to-day basis, they would use email from those machines. They would have a network attached storage, an Azure drive, just providing some local storage for Word files, Excel files, and things like that. So when obviously the lockdown was announced that it was coming, or they were aware it was coming, they needed a way to get access to the files remotely. So 2 options was, one was to look at a VPN, or the second option was either to look at Microsoft 365. So their email is currently in 365. So as Paul said there, they've already started their journey to the cloud. Email is already in the cloud. So it was therefore it was an easy decision to look at, okay, there's only flat files, a few Word, Excel files on that NAS drive. We'll take all that and we'll move it up into SharePoint. So we work with them, set up the laptops, got them ready, fully integrated with 365, emails on them, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams. So come the Monday morning of lockdown, the staff were able to operate from home pretty much as if they were in the office. No need to go into the office then. So that's that.
Great. Okay. I'll move on to the next one for you, David.
Yep. Thank you. So this is a bit of a busier slide. So just to explain it, 10-user site. Again, you can see from the slide, they have a lot of hardware. There's a lot of servers, a lot of NAS drives. Similar to the last one, their email is already in 365, so they've already taken a step towards the cloud. Obviously, with the hardware, with the number of servers, and the need to have the applications running from those servers, such as Sage or Relate or any of these applications, they weren't really in a position right now at this point in time to move further into the cloud, maybe to look at 365 or OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams. So what we did there was implemented a secure VPN connection. So the client or the users at home are able to connect to the office by way of a secure VPN, and creates a tunnel from their home network to the office network. From there, they can RDP or remote desktop into their machine and work on it as if they were sitting in front of the PC in the office. So they have full access to their line of business applications, full access to emails, and as well as that, one of the things they needed was they needed to be able to print at home as well. So what the VPN was able to do was allow them to print back to a printer that they had at home.
Yeah, and it's probably worth noting here that this is very much an interim solution.
Yes.
It's not a long-term strategy, and one of the downsides of this interim solution is that the 10 PCs or so in the office need to stay on.
Yes.
For this model to work, which is obviously not very efficient.
No.
Okay. Great. Well, we move on to the next example. Again, a slightly larger firm this time. Yes.
So again, a busy slide, but this is a bigger client site. They have a 20-user across the sites. They have multiple sites. They have headquarters, which is based in Wexford. They have a satellite office based here in Kilkenny, where I am, and they also have an office in Carlow. again, as you can see from the Wexford, we have a lot of servers running their line of business applications. One of those servers is actually a remote desktop server. So what that does is allows the users to log into that and to run the line of business applications, to basically run a desktop for the particular users. So what that saves, and what you were alluding to on the previous slide, Paul, was that user had to log into a PC in the office. Whereas with this one, for the Wexford side of it, they were able to log into this remote desktop down in Wexford. 10 users or whatever are able to dial into that, work off the applications, work off their emails, and have access to their line of business through that. The Carlow office is a little bit separate. They have their own server there, so a little bit of a combination. Again, similar to the last slide, what happened here was a secure VPN into Carlow. Laptops were provided to the Carlow users, and that allows the Carlow users to log in, get access to the line of business applications in Carlow so that they can function there. At the same time, they can access the server down in Wexford to get access to the applications that are on that server. With the phone system for this client, again they're further along. Their phone system is actually in the cloud as well. So what that allowed them to do was they were able to take the desktop phones off the desks, bring them home, and the staff were able to plug them in and utilize the phone system, make incoming, outgoing calls from at home. So a bit more of a better or a more joined up approach, but still a hybrid solution where you have some users logging into Wexford, some users logging into Carlow, but it was enough to facilitate to get the staff out and about to what they were working on.
Yeah, and again, this is not a solution we would recommend, bizarrely, longer term, but it's kind of a plaster for now. And David, what are the implications if I'm a remote Wexford or Kilkenny user now connecting to a remote desktop server in Wexford and I lose my home internet connection? What are my options at that point?
Well, basically, the internet is the backbone of it, Paul. Realistically, they need to have some level of connectivity at home, or as I said, if they don't get a home, what comes into play then is what Tom was alluding to there, is a shared office space. If there's a shared office space that they can go to that's near their home address, they could pick up, go into the shared office space, and all they need to do then is get internet access, and again they're back in, and they have remote access to the server in Wexford, or if it's Carlow, they have access to the PCs in Carlow where they can continue to work as normal.
Yeah, and it probably is fair to say that in certain circumstances, another option might be to pair your laptop with your phone and try access the service over 4G.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
But that's only in certain cases, depending upon the technology at HQ.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Great. Well, let's move on again to a slightly larger firm this time.
Okay. Well, this is a bigger client again, a bigger site again. This is a 50 user site. This client actually embraced the cloud a number of years ago. They decided they had, again, similar to the previous slide, they would have had a lot of servers, a lot of devices on site. They would have had a lot of line of business applications, Sage, Relate, all these kind of applications where they needed access on a day-to-day basis. And what they decided to do was move everything to the cloud, get all the hardware infrastructure, get all the servers, push it all up to the cloud, and basically the only thing they have then in their headquarters in Swords would be their internet connection coming in, which facilitates them getting online. And once they're online, then that they can establish a connection into this online environment. So the current environment they're in there, as you can see at the moment, is Microsoft Azure. It's a Windows virtual desktop solution. It's a relatively new solution to the Irish market. It only fully came on stream last year. But this company have already been in the cloud. They fully embraced it, and they were able to take this on board. So as I said, they have 50 users dialing into this on a day-to-day basis, and they get presented with their desktop. They have full access to the same applications, same emails, data files from wherever they are. So they can log into that from anywhere in the world. It's a secure connection in. They can log into it from a mobile device, from a tablet device, from a laptop, a PC, a Mac, any kind of device. They can log into this environment and have everything there. So they were ideally suited with, and well, I won't say ideally suited because obviously circumstances are not ideal for any of us. They were in a good position that when the lockdown was made, they weren't tied down to their head office. They could allow the staff just to take the office laptops and go home with them and basically continue to function as if they're sitting there in the office in Swords in Dublin.
Yeah, and we talked about public cloud platforms earlier, and Microsoft Azure being one of them, and we have seen a few glitches with Azure, and that is where certain clients, they turn down their servers at nighttime, essentially to reduce costs. But what we noticed very quickly that when these systems were turning on in the morning, there was no compute resource available to turn them on. So literally clients were left with situations where they couldn't turn on their servers because the Azure system was under strain. So if any of you are using Azure, we would encourage you not to turn them off at nighttime, because that will likely cause issues for you. Because that's still going on today, I believe, David.
It is, yeah. So as I said, what's happening there is a bit like what Zoom have experienced as well, is that there was such a rush for people to get a solution, to find a way around this, to allow the businesses to continue to run, that their numbers doubled overnight, or tripled, or quadrupled, or whatever the case be. And what Microsoft found is that the resources in Dublin came on North Europe, pretty much. North Europe is based in Dublin. West Europe is based in Amsterdam. The two centres are paired together, and they basically function together, and they provide the services for the whole of Europe, pretty much. So what happened was, there were so many people moving their services to 365, getting Teams going, getting OneDrive, SharePoint, everything set up and running, moving everything into the cloud, brought so much pressure to the resources that what you found was that people, when they were turning off the resources and looking to turn them back on again, they weren't able to, because the resources weren't there. So it's like all the companies that they're with, as I said, with Zoom and Microsoft and Amazon and Google, and all of them, they're trying to find a way around to what's the word I'm looking for?
Maybe auto scale, or
well, just to match the request, the demand.
Yes.
So to meet the demand, basically.
So this company, traditionally, while its IT is in the cloud, most of its users work predominantly from the office. They're now working remotely. And David, what impact do you think that's had on the integrity and security of their data?
For this client,
for this particular client,
particular client, very minimal, because the way they're working is they're dialing into the service. The laptop, the device they have, is pretty much just a dumb terminal. There's no data saved on it. There's nothing really realistically on it. They log into their PC, they open up a link, and they dial into the services through the virtual desktop, basically, and that's presented to them. When they're finished with that, they just log off. Everything that they've worked on is saved in the virtual desktop, saved to the servers. There's nothing realistically on the local devices. So in regard to their data integrity and security, they're in a good position.
Yeah, and we can even turn off USB ports on laptops to prevent people copying data from this platform down to their local device as well. We can take it to that level, right?
Yes, yes. So on the previous example there, we mentioned that one of the clients requested that they needed to be able to print through their remote desktop connection.
Yes.
Through the VPN, and basically using remote desktop through the VPN, and that allows them to print to the printer in their office.
Yeah.
Again, with anything with this solution, people are already being in. Options such as that are normally turned on by default, that they can basically copy and paste between the environments, or they can print back to the printer behind them, and all that kind of things are turned on, so that, or turned off, sorry, so that they're locked into the environment as such that they can't copy and paste. So if they were working on a file on the desktop in the server, they can't copy it out and have it on the laptop. Likewise, they can't print to a printer if those options were turned on or turned off.
Okay, great. So we have a lot of granular control in this environment. Yeah. Yeah, and the next thing I'd like to just to maybe put you, David, and this is not on the slide deck. We had an event. We had a ransomware issue with another client in the last couple of days. Are you in a position to summarize what happened there and what we've done to recover that situation for that client?
Yeah, well, basically, at the moment, threats are high. The people who are whether it's a young lad in a basement trying to hack into a system, or whether it's an organized crime or whatever, they're constantly trying to find ways of breaching a system, of trying to get in, and they're utilizing this time to good effect. Basically, they're trying to find different ways. They know people now are at home, logging into systems. They know that they're maybe not as 100% secure as they may have been when they were in the office environment. There's maybe no main firewall protecting the connections. The antivirus mightn't be as tight as it would be on an office environment. All these elements are in play. And so what happened here is they got into the client server, dropped in a malicious file, basically corrupted all the data. With that, there was no real, the safest way of doing this is just to restore from backup. So, and
can I ask you, David, do you know how much money they were asking for?
Didn't get to that point. Got to before it went the full way in effect.
Okay.
So caught it in its tracks before it could actually finish what it was trying to do.
Right.
It was leaving up the please contact here to but you're best not even entertain that, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, restore from backup, revert your system, and don't.
Okay, great. I've had another experience in the past with ransomware, and the ransomware provider, shall we call them, even offered up a help desk. If you had any problems, they would take a call from you and show you how to pay them.
Which quite cheeky at times.
Yeah, which is nice of them. Okay.
We caught them once upon a time. Before, what they used to do when the ransomware was new was they used to show you that they could unencrypt your files. You had to send them a selection of your files just to prove it. So we used to be able to use that to our advantage and contact them and say, here's a couple of files. Can you please prove that you can unencrypt these and send back the files? And by that way, we were able to find a way of basically getting around it.
Okay, very good.
They caught up to that very quickly. And
they did,
yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. Right, so with all of that said, and with our experiences over the last couple of months, in our view, post-COVID-19, I think we're going to see a hybrid working model. We don't see people sitting in cars 5 days a week, being office-based. We see, because clearly the world has demonstrated to itself that it can work remotely, but nobody wants to work remotely full-time. So in our view, it'll be a hybrid model. Now, in this hybrid world, it does create challenges for business IT, and we have touched on most of this already, but it really should be quite a large focus on user awareness, user training, because it is a different environment from which to work. So that's something we would encourage people to do. And finally, we believe all stakeholders in this can win from this experience. Business can benefit, employees, and probably most importantly, the environment. Okay, with that, over to you, Tom.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. I'll just give a quick run through from our perspective, slightly different, less on the technical side, but I should say in the start that we have been using BITS since 2015, actually started with them in Kilkenny and then continued to use them in Wexford and Carlow and Dublin because they understand the issues, and it's again a different working environment. The biggest issue, funny enough, we've got gigabit broadband, and for us in the co-working centre where people are coming in from all walks of life, all professions, two really important things, two essential things. One is a good adjustable seat, and the other is bulletproof broadband. We in a couple of centres actually have redundancy built in there. We have two providers. But the interesting thing I realised fairly on chatting with the guys from BITS is that a lot of people are not getting the benefit from gigabit broadband in their office space or wherever, because actually normally the weakest link is outside your office and your Wi-Fi is faster than anything you can get in, but that's not the case with better broadband. So actually you need people to know what they're doing to put in the right switch and to distribute the broadband within your office space, basically. So we've worked closely with BITS on that. But more on the sort of the remote working side, basically this is a lot of this is something that has been coming anyway. The commutes have been getting longer for people since the last recession. People don't want to be doing it anymore because they know it's not necessary to do it all the time. Staff retention has been getting harder because people are working for companies not in Ireland at all who offer them a job that will allow them to work remotely. Office prices in Dublin gotten ridiculous. So it was a perfect storm anyway. The resistance was that companies were feeling, look, we'll lose control, we can't manage the staff remotely, the technology's not there yet. And in a way, some of that was true, but the crisis, silver lining in it is that it has thrown people into it at the deep end. And like you were saying, Paul, actually it's held up amazingly well, because we're not just depending on one technology anymore. We have alternatives. So when one thing doesn't work out, or when Skype falls over or whatever, there's Zoom and there's whatever else. So every company, I think, is muddling along. Non-ideal, probably loads of us are in those different configurations along the way that you've shown, but we'll learn from this how to set up better. And the other thing is that what COVID means is really we're not going to be going back immediately. It's not going to be back to business as usual anyway. Even if we wanted to, densities in offices have to be much lower than they were. So it'll be gradual anyway. And the win for the environment, like you're mentioning, Paul, is there for the government to take straight away if they give it incentives for people to be working, say, start with 20, 30% work days. And that'll be some staff on site all the time, some remote all the time, and some in between, just a hybrid model. You can actually calculate in 2 hours how much your CO2 footprint has reduced as a company or as a government employer or whoever else. But in the short term, it is a crisis for us as well, because we'd normally say that basically you have three options. You work from the office in Dublin or in the US or wherever you work remotely from home, or we're the third way, which is you work from near home. And mostly people's initial thing is I prefer to work from home. Once I have the choice to work remotely and the technology is in place. But after a while working from home, like what Paul and I would have that experience, you realize it's not, you need work-life separation to have work-life balance. Simple as that. It's very hard to switch off in the evening, very hard to switch on in the morning. And there are other priorities at home. So we'd normally say we're the best option. But coming up to this crisis, well before the shutdown, I was saying to the members, look, we're chasing our customers away, basically saying, on this occasion, home is actually better because no office can be set up to be 100% sure of not, especially when the COVID was unknown and where exactly it was going. And even when we reopen, we're not going to be able to necessarily benefit from this enormously because we're going to have to shut down at least half our desks. Our maximum capacity will be about half what we'd been aiming for before this. But we will get around that, and I think the awareness will pick up, and like a lot of offices and businesses will have to bring in have to do a lot of thinking about their own spaces and how to exert the maximum community responsibility in this period. And in the longer term, I think our message will be near home is better. It's better than commuting, and it's better than being at home. Flexibility and you know, the hybrid model is going to be better. And I think there's another aspect, because we're talking to Carlow Chamber, but also what it means for the actual businesses in Carlow. And I think it's the first lifeline that businesses in towns like Carlow, the regional towns, are going to get, is you're going to have professionals back in the town. When they drop the kids in school, they'll be staying in town, working in town. Those are people with disposable income, actually all the more so because they're not having to commute every day anymore. So that for coffee shops and boutiques and whatever else, it'd probably be hard on businesses in Dublin, but that's going to be transferred, finally a transfer back to, so it's not only the workforce that's being distributed, but actually their spending power is being distributed to the regional towns. Yeah. So I think there is silver lining to all of this, and this will precipitate it moving faster to where it needs to be. But as I say, working from home for now is still going to be the best thing. But the technology is there, and technology has held up well. I didn't think it would hold up. My own business is in Cape Town, and we had to go remote completely quite quickly from an office-based thing. And we're on that second model that you put up there, Paul, where we're basically remoting into our desktops in the office, but it's actually working. One of the stupid problems you have there is you're terrified that somebody will actually switch off, because you can switch off the desktop remotely. Of course, you can't switch it back on again. And it's a total lockdown in Cape Town. So actually, we'd be breaking the law to go in to switch on the fact that you see that somebody has switched off. Yeah. But those kind of things, you suddenly, it's amazing what human beings can rise to when they have to, you know, and people are not going to go back to saying 5 days a week, 15 hours a week commuting, total waste of time, social time, family time, and even in terms of your brain power for your work, you can give so much more if you're not exhausted all the time. So I think maybe 6 months or 9 months down the line, hopefully things will be working differently and everyone will be looking at those kind of models. And it's different for each business as well, because even each small business within our centres and each remote worker, their needs are all different. So it's a big time of learning. I think that's what I'm thinking. And I'm hoping maybe, you know, we'll be able to stay going in Carlow and Kilkenny and Wexford and have, you know, sort of be bringing some of the professionals back to work there, you know.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else you want to say on this slide here, Tom?
Yeah, no, just that's it. That's our 4 centres are there, and we're trying to collaborate. We've been trying for a while, I was saying to the guys earlier, with other co-working centres, because there are many of them around the country and the offerings are different. Ours are very focused on remote workers physically as well as in terms of our pitch, because I'm a remote worker, and essentially the difference is other co-working centres tend to have big wide open tables and a lot of collaboration. So they're very focused on startups and startup culture. We do that as well, and we've had startups through the door, but ours are partitioned spaces. So you actually have the private space, and the work areas tend to be quieter because digital people, software people especially, tend to want to put their head down and do their own work. Yeah. And the people around them are not necessarily their colleagues. They're sort of peers from other companies. So you're not collaborating all the time. And so quieter spaces, and our social areas are separate areas. So we'll be able to bring in measures there more easily than where the entire office is a social area.
I have to say, Tom, the work near home is a really nice term. It's one that's certainly resonating with me.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's even just the colleagues that you meet. I mean, for me, it's been brilliant. People from all walks of life in all our towns, Carlow and Kilkenny, Wexford, you'll be amazed what's going on. And then the unintentional collaboration and the passing on of contacts and so on that happens in there. But just to get out into an adult work environment, it's completely separate from what's going on at home. It's really good for everyone, you know. Not every day necessarily, and so on. Yeah. We have folks from people you would think previously couldn't work remotely. People say that's fine for X, but not for me. Like we have architects, we've had vets, we have a lot of software people, obviously, designers, people who work for Dell, people who work for all kinds of companies, and from all across Europe, actually. Again, you tend to think we were setting up remote in Kilkenny or Carlow, it'll be all people from Dublin. Actually, most of our people are from mainland Europe and Kilkenny, working for companies. They've come back to live in Kilkenny for lifestyle reasons. Similarly in Carlow, we're seeing more of that. So the world is changing, and employers, it's not a thing that it'll be nice to do from now on, good for the environment. We're going to have to do it to keep your employees, because if you don't, your good staff are going to go to other employers. It's simple as that. Yeah. So the world is changing, I think.
Okay, very good.
I have thought that before, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
This slide is just a few samples of typical profiles of people who work in our co-working centres in Dublin, Wexford, and so on. But I don't need to read through that.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tom. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you again, Brian, for hosting it, and thank you for the attendees. Thank you for your time. And we'll take any questions if there are any.
Everybody's quiet enough there this afternoon again. But if there's any questions, if you want to post them through there in the chat, or even raise your hand, you can see a raise your hand function there, and we could arrange to open a mic. But pretty much from me in the chamber, a big thank you to Paul, Tom, and David for taking the time this afternoon to go through the remote work solutions and in such detail there to give us a good insight into all of them. With today's webinar, we have been recording as well, so the webinar will be available online on the Chamber website within the next 24 hours. Next week, we've got 2 more webinars as well scheduled. On Tuesday, we have a very different one. We're talking about certificates of origin and international trade, and that's on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And then on Thursday at 2 o'clock, we have got Dr. James Ring of InGen Consultancy and Training, and he's delivering a webinar on change management. And that'll be the start of our May seminars, and we'll have a whole schedule of those coming out as well shortly. But I don't see any questions there being posed at the moment. I think everybody's digesting everything. So from me in the chamber, and thank you, and keep safe and enjoy the bank holiday weekend.
Thank you.